the fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll remember this.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm here to give my spoiler-free thoughts on episodes 1 through 3 of the Willow sequel series based on George Lucas's 1988 fantasy film adventure film Willow. But I am not alone. Joining me on this journey is Kit Stone. And as of this recording, the series is now streaming on Disney Plus. And before we get into our review, we would like to thank Disney for sending us the first 3 episodes of the show early to review for you guys, so we can kind of, spill the tea there a little bit for everyone. We want to make sure that you guys are well fed and well groomed for this new Willow series. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Kits, first off, welcome to the show. It's your first time on. Congratulations to the Film Optix podcast. How are you, and how's your week been?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I made the cut to get on the podcast. My week has been great so far. Still early in the week. There's still plenty of time for it to, downward spiral. But as of right now, we're in a good place.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, my week, it's a Tuesday. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Not much has happened. A lot of people saw the Black Panther Wakanda Forever a few days ago. I saw it on yesterday, Monday night. So that was a treat for sure. But, for embargo purposes, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, and please don't, because I don't see it until Friday. So keep it to yourself.
I got you. Well, of course, we have to keep the House of Mouse, the Disney overlords happy as well.
Of course.
There's always that. But what have you been watching as of late? I know there's so much, there's a lot of TV.
So there's so much. And what's interesting is I really feel like years go back and forth between like the year of blockbusters and the year of television. And I feel like once again in 2022, it has been the year of television. There's so many great series out there. I have been dipping my toe into Peripheral on Prime Video because, it comes from the creators of Westworld, and you have to give it a shot to see, what's gonna unfold there. I won't say too much because all the episodes have not aired. But I've also been kind of satisfying my need for vampires with Reginald the Vampire on Sci-Fi and Interview with the Vampire on AMC Plus, 2 completely different world of vampires. One is a little bit darker, which is Interview with the Vampire, and one's a much more lighter watch, with our guy Jacob from Spider-Man. So, it's comical, and it has Mandela Van Peebles in it as well. And it's really good. Both series are really great.
Okay. Nice. I do agree with you, though. I really feel like this year for 2022 is the year of television. I mean, we've had House of the Dragon, which is phenomenal. We had Rings of Power. We had The Sandman this year. We had Euphoria season 2. We've had so much. And as for me, I've been trying to catch up on, so much television. I mean, Titans season 4 comes out. That's more of a guilty pleasure of mine. I know a lot of people aren't super crazy about that, but that just started. I've also been catching up on The Dragon Prince that's on Netflix. It's one of my favorite series of all time. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. It's wonderful. It's another fantasy series that I'm all just crazy about. And of course, what we're talking about here today is Willow. That's coming out, or it's actually out as of this recording, because this will be dropping on November 30th when the embargo lifts for everyone out there. But yeah, I gotta agree. TV has has been killing it this year. I've seen so many amazing shows this year. Severance is another one that comes to mind, which was phenomenal. And I'm over the moon. I cannot wait to talk about TV until, the end of time. I guess I am more of a TV buff than movie buff, but I still love movies. It's just, I love long form storytelling. So that's my whole deal there. But those shows that you're watching actually sound very, very fun. I need to kind of branch out a little bit. So, I've been trying to keep up with my gosh, what is the name of it? Abbott Elementary. That's another one. Totally forgot about that as well.
That's a really good comedy. Yeah, I agree. TV is just, and there's so many different kinds coming out, and we've gone from these elaborate dramas to now we can make elaborate horrors and these sci-fis, and just with technology able to make a show like Rings of Power and just make it so beautiful, and just it's just, TV is just where it's at right now. Love movies, but TV is just kind of winning.
Yeah, it is winning this year. It is. There's nothing wrong with that. We need a little bit of TV in our lives. The more things that I can stay home and watch, ultimately is the better. Like, I will go out to the theater for any blockbuster movie that's out there, and your occasional indie film that plays in theaters. But yeah, there's nothing better than watching movies and TV shows just in the comfort of your own home. I think there's something very just familiar about it, and you can just you're in control. You're not sitting next to someone in the movie theater who's talking to the entire thing. I had that happen to me a few times earlier last week when I went to go see Armageddon Time, which is a really amazing film, but I had these two old ladies were chatting next to me, and I had to shush them up a few times. But I hopefully hope they got the message there. But with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get into our Willow series review. Again, we're going to be covering the first 3 episodes of the series of this 8-episode season. So only episodes 1 through 3 here today. We're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on those episodes. So, Kit, are you ready to travel back to Tears Lean? I think Tears Lean?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this introduction to Willow.
You think you know what is real and what isn't. What is light? What is dark? Now, forget all you know. Come with me. Willow.
We're looking for the sorcerer, Willow. I was told that once long ago you defeated the forces of evil.
You remind me of your mother.
My dear friend, I thought I could prevent all this. I was wrong.
My brother was abducted. The world needs you again. It needs your magic.
Follow me. We must go beyond the edge of our world, into the unknown.
Willow!
I need your help.
Just like old times. Attack! Running! Horses! Mayhem! Mayhem! Happy to see you.
And we are back with our Willow series, episode 1 through 3. This series is created by Jonathan Kasdan and stars Warwick Davis, Joanne Whalley, Ruby Cruz, Erin Kellyman, and more. And the story is as follows. An unlikely group of heroes sets off on a dangerous quest to places far beyond their homes where they must face inner demons and come together to save the world. So for everyone out there listening, welcome. This is our official Willow series, sequel series. Just want to throw that out there. This is a sequel series. This is not a reboot of the movie that came out in 1988, but we're going to get into our initial reactions. That is like our non-spoiler section. Then we'll give our final thoughts and our ratings. And then we're just going to kind of skedaddle on out of here. So I'm going to pass it over to Kit so we can kind of just get this whole thing started. Kit, what were your initial reactions of this sequel series? And I believe you said that you watched or you rewatched the original film. So actually, let's start with that. What is your relationship with Willow, the film that came out in 1988?
Well, not to date myself, but I grew up with that movie. I won't say that I saw it like when it came out like that year. However, I do remember everything about it, and I did just rewatch the original film. And I was surprised at how much I remembered, like everything about the film and about that story and about those characters just kind of came flooding right back in as if I had just seen it the day before. It was a really interesting movie to watch in 2022. But kind of fast forwarding to the series, one thing I liked about the series initially looking at it is we've had a lot of very heavy fantasy TV shows this year. In particular, we've had House of the Dragon, we've had Rings of Power, Westworld, and shows like that. And I forgot kind of what it looks like to have that kind of old school fantasy feel, kind of that Princess Bride, where it feels like it's a tangible world that you can actually exist in. It's not heavily, doesn't have heavy visual effects and things like that. And so that I did miss. And I think that kind of fueled the nostalgia for me when watching it. It's like simpler fantasy times.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old school like sword and sorcery. I mean, I did not grow up in the 80s. I was not born in the 80s, so I am.
You just had to shade me there. You just had to shade me with that line.
I'm just telling the people how it is. I just turned 30 this year, so for me, when it comes to the original film, I actually watched it for the first time before even watching the screeners, because it's been on my bucket list for a long time, and I wasn't sure if it was on Disney Plus. Then I finally, stopped being lazy and actually searched through the Disney's SEO, and I found it. I was like, oh, so the original film is streaming on Disney Plus, and I think the sequel series kind of embodies what made the original film so beloved. It is that old school, like fairy tale fantasy, the sword and sorcery type of adventure where, magic just exists for the sake of it, just existing in this world. And I can understand why people loved it so much, at least the original film, because I did a little bit of research. And apparently Willow, the film did not do well. I mean, of course, this came off right after, the success of the original trilogy of Star Wars with Lucasfilm. For anyone out there who doesn't know, Lucasfilm owns more than just Star Wars out there, and Indiana Jones. But apparently the film Willow gained a very big cult following once it hit home video, like for VHS. So I think that is really where it hit its stride. But I feel like there's a lot of old school movies that are like that aren't necessarily critically acclaimed, but, the fan base just absolutely eats it up. And I know within the 80s, there was like a overhaul or like an oversaturation of just everything medieval fantasy. So maybe people were a little bit tired of it on the critic side for the film, but for the series, I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. Like I said, I prepped myself to watch the film first before going into it, because once I learned that the sequel series was, actually a sequel to the film, I was like, okay, so this isn't a reboot, because I almost didn't watch the film. But I was like, okay, this is nice. And it was, it's so tongue in cheek with like the original film, but bringing Willow into the modern age, it's been about 25, maybe 30 years since anyone's maybe even uttered the word of Willow. But
I mean, among casual Disney fans, yeah. But just going back to a point you made, that's one of the things that I love about television, about film, about this medium, is that one person can see something completely different in a film that another person can. And I think that's what's happened to Willow and other cult favorites, that didn't do well in the box office or didn't do well, among critics. And it's like this cherished thing that because of the fandom has been given new life to even make it to a series. And I think that that's really great. I will say, though, that when I rewatched the film, one similarity that it had to the series is that I think that we've been spoiled with context. I think that we've been spoiled with elaborate backstories and world building. And when I rewatched the film and then watched the series, I feel like they both shared in a lack of context. Not saying I still didn't enjoy it, but I just didn't get enough why things are happening. In the film, it's like there's this queen, and this is not a, spoiler because it's the film. It's already out. But in the film, there's this queen, and, this baby is going to destroy her and, end her reign over this town. And then, like, towards the end, it's like, we need the baby to lift the curse. And it's like, what curse? What curse is over the town? We didn't talk about it, and it's so there's a lot of different things. You have Val Kilmer as Madmartigan, and he's in a cage, and it's like not completely clear why he's in a cage. It's just a lot happening, but we don't really know why, but we don't want to turn away because we like these characters and we want to see what's going to happen, and we want to see magic, and we want to see Willow finally be a sorcerer. It's just, even in the beginning when they had the, I forgot what it's called, where not the Lord Elwyn, is it?
The High Elwyn, yeah.
With the High Elwyn, when he decides who's going to be the next sorcerer in training, the apprentice, it didn't even explain, like, well, who's the current apprentice, or what does that mean? And if you're not chosen, like, does that mean you don't have power? It implies that the world is like something that, like, magic is something that you have to practice at, or those little kind of details, for people who have just spent so much time, going into the books of Lord of the Rings or the books of Game of Thrones, and have been dissecting all this, and you have all of this kind of backstory, to gather. I think that's the one thing that I missed from both the film and the series, is I just want to know the why. I want a little more backstory into what we're doing and how exactly it's supposed to be, combated.
I do agree with you there, and I kind of actually want to touch on that because that is one of my minor gripes. I have a few other great things I want to say about it, but we'll get to that here in a second. But I do agree when it kind of, things just exist and there is no real exposition. And like you said, even in the film, it's not, like you said, oh, there's a baby, we have Eleanor.
Yes,
Eleanor. I am blanking on her name right now. And I know it starts with an EL. I'm sorry. I should have came more prepared. But in the film, if there's this baby who's supposed to essentially bring balance to the force, aka just, save the world from this, witch queen. And we don't know why. It just is, and we're kind of just expected to go along with it. But like you said, we love the character so much. People love Willow so much because he's so good-hearted. He has, like a chip on his shoulder. He's very noble. But when it comes to the series, I feel like it does suffer the same thing, because the first 3 episodes, I feel like there are a lot of great moments. And I feel like the first episode was a nice little return to form altogether. And of course, I feel like people should watch the film before watching the series to kind of elevate that experience a little bit, because if you're diving into the series by itself, you're going to be probably more lost than you would like to be. They start this whole like hand-holding flashback type situation where, they have the flashbacks from the original film and the series, and they have new flashbacks to kind of fill in the gap, because this is all based on one movie. So you have to kind of explain what's been happening between all these years. How many years it's been, I don't know, because I don't even think they mentioned it in the first 3 episodes.
We can kind of do the math in our head because, by the way, her name is Alora Dannon. But yes, we can kind of do the math in our heads because, there are children now that did not exist. And we can assume that, because of the age of the children, that Alora, wherever she is older now as well. So it has to at least be, I'm going to guess and say 20 years max.
That is true. They didn't necessarily explain how long, but I guess, yeah, you would be able to figure out through the kid's age because, as we know, for Joanne Wally's character, she has children and, you're kind of able to figure that out. And, of course, that's all in the trailer, I guess you could say, little snippets here and there, you remind me of your mother. Oh my gosh, who could it be? Yes.
Right. I will say that one thing I really missed is Mad Mardigan's character. And I understand, but happy that I feel like there was an effort to still include his character in the story somewhat. Even though he couldn't be a part of it. And that really made my heart smile every time I hear his name mentioned, because he was a very silly character in the film. And he's definitely missed for sure.
He was. And honest, when I first watched the film, 2-3 weeks ago, for the first time ever, I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot Val Kilmer was starring in this movie, and he ended up being my favorite. But like you said, we meet him, he's in this cage and we don't know why. He's just there, but you're just kind of expected to go along with it altogether. Right. But I also wanted to bring up the the modern sensibility that the series is bringing thus far when it comes to just bringing people of color into the fantasy realm. We've been seeing a lot of that. I'm not sure if you've actually watched, it's called The Legend of Vox Machina. It's on Amazon Prime Video.
Don't disrespect me. Yes, I've watched it.
So good. But, you start to see, the people of color there. And then obviously we see with House of the Dragon and Rings of Power. And I really enjoyed how they were able to, bring that updated sensibility to the modern age with all these fantasy series have started to include those people of color in their cast. And it seems that Willow, the series, is following suit because we have people like Erin Kellyman. Of course, you may know her from Solo: A Star Wars Story or Falcon the Winter Soldier or The Green Knight if you're a really big A24 fan. And then we have Tony Ravolli. He plays Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man MCU trilogy as well. But I wanted to kind of get your take on that about, do you think that Willow is starting to follow that trend? Do you think that they're handling it in a
authentic way, perhaps? I mean, I think so. I will say that there are moments where in fantasy recently, maybe due to call outs or whatever, where some representation feels forced and kind of not that it shouldn't be there, but it shouldn't just be dropped there. Whether it's representation with, identity, sexuality or whatever, I feel like there can be a little more smoothing. So it's not so rigid and not so deliberate, look what we put here. Right. But I do think that Willow so far is doing a good job. Outside of the 3 or 4 characters, we haven't really seen too much extra people of color. But it's only been 3 episodes, and speaking of those 3 episodes, the length of the episodes really surprised me as well, because, Disney Plus is known for giving little appetizers, little cheese and cracker episodes where you want a meal. And I was kind of shocked. I kept pausing it like, oh, I have like 20 more minutes to go. So I feel like even though we didn't get a lot of context in those first 3 episodes, I'm hoping that because they're so long, that it's because they have a lot of story to give us. That's what my hope is.
Yeah, so I would agree with you there. It is. I do agree with the point where you're saying, like when it comes to representation, no matter what form it's in, it doesn't need to feel forced. I feel like with this series so far, like there's like the characters I mentioned, like they're there. I mean, I can't say that they're necessarily, they don't feel forced, but there's something with Willow that I'm like, okay, maybe we haven't seen as much because, again, we only seen the first 3 episodes. So we don't necessarily know where the story's going, but they do make a lot of references where I don't think people are going to know what like specific places are or specific people are if you haven't watched the original film. But I do agree with you when it comes to representation where it does need to feel more authentic. But yeah, at the same time, we haven't seen too much. So it's kind of hard to judge, but I like what I'm seeing so far for sure, especially when it comes to representation, not only with people of color, but with like sexuality as well. But, Disney, and also to your point where these longer episodes, we've been so conditioned with these Marvel shows that, okay, it's going to be 6 episodes, boom, one and done. And then we're kind of they're either 30-minute episodes or somewhat maybe an hour-ish long. Like with She-Hulk, they're around 30 minutes long. With Willow, I'm glad that they're able to go the 8-episode route. I feel like that is a sweet spot for a lot of series, and especially for a Willow sequel series. I was very shocked that a lot of these episodes really hit around like the 45 to 50-minute mark. So I was like, oh, they're giving us as much context, and hopefully, that the story continues, because I am enjoying it so far. I guess it is for kids. Like there is a few cussing here and there, but it's not. I'm still trying to figure out who this is for. Is it for the original crew who grew up with Willow, or is this for new fans who want to get invested into the series? Because I can't imagine little Jimmy at 8, 9 years old. He might want to tune in, but there is a few, adult language themes that happen. So I'm trying to figure out who it's for. I don't know.
I think it's definitely for anyone who's a fan of the film. I think it's for fantasy fans in general, Dungeons and Dragons type of people. I think that it is for a little more of a sophisticated palette, only because you're not getting the thrills that you would get from one of these newer fantasy shows. So I think it demands a little more attention to stay with it, because it doesn't explain, you kind of have to, for me, I had to push myself through not so much the first episode, but kind of, a little bit through the first and like the second a little bit, because there's some moments where you just don't feel invested yet or connected to a specific character. And even though I love Willow's character and I love his friend, and I love seeing them back in the same film together, I don't feel invested in any one person's journey that much yet, except for maybe Jade.
Yeah, I think Jade. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because and I was trying, I rewatched episodes 1 through 3 twice. I'm like, something's missing as of right now. And outside of course, we were talking about Willow, Warwick Davis, reprising his role. I think he is easily the heart and soul of the series so far when it comes to, leading this group of misfit heroes on this perilous quest. But I do agree. I feel like as of right now, outside of Jade, I really wanted to be invested in someone else, and I feel like 3 episodes in, there should have been someone outside of like Willow or Saoirse, played by Joanne Whalley as well. But yeah, nothing's really hit so far for me when it comes to, man, like I really love this character, but Jade, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I actually think the other person's name is Kit as well.
Yeah.
For what
I
Yeah.
think I agree. I agree. I think we'll get there though. And I know some people who give a series like 4 episodes and then they're done. I'm a firm believer of giving it a whole season because I feel like different episodes have different pacing and you can't judge an entirety of a story on just the first couple episodes because you have to get to where you have to see where they were trying to go, where they're trying to lead you to. And I think Severance is a good example because when I first started Severance, I stopped and then I went back and I was like, okay, get through some of these slow moments. Just give it the whole season. And I'm telling you, but when you get to the last episode, you're chomping at the bit for the next season. Like you cannot wait. And I think that that's what needs to happen with Willow. We've gotten the first 3 episodes. We feel the nostalgia. We are reminded of these characters. We're back in this tangible, authentic world where magic not only exists, but where magic is harder actually than some of these other series, where people just have these gifts and it's like magic takes a lot of work in this world of the series, which is a nice change. And so I think that if we just give it time and then get to where they want us to go at the end, we'll be able to decide, how we really feel about the series, which I'm hoping has a lot more context, especially if it's not a limited series. We need to see where it can go in the future. And that's what I'm really interested in.
Actually, I think you said the magic words as soon as you said, you need to give an entire like first season, like a full watch, because like you said, a lot of people do drop off. They start a TV show and they're like, oh, well, I didn't like this episode. So, this is garbage or this is trash. This is hot dog water, whatever it may be. I think you said the magic words there because I'm the same way. Where, even though I may not be as invested now, that could very well change later on. Like, because it can only it could get worse, but it could get better. But you're not going to know until you at least finish the first season of a show. Because like you said, with Severance, I've known people who were watching House of the Dragon. They're like, oh, well, there's a lot of time skips. I'm like, hey, I understand there's a lot of time skips. That is just something that they decided to lean into when it comes to the first season. But I told them, like, I promise you just got to keep pushing on because I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of stuff that you like. There's going to be stuff that you don't like. But overall, you have to give it a fair shot. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, like we watched the first 3 episodes of Willow and, oh, like we're not going to watch past this, whatever. It's like, no, I'm committed when it comes to at least finishing out the first season to see how I like it. Even with the first season of the original Game of Thrones, it's a very slow build up, but it's so good. It's so faithful to the books. And there's a lot of great moments. And I know a lot of people didn't necessarily start watching Game of Thrones until maybe around the 2nd season. That's when it gained, I guess, it hit mainstream. But, I keep telling people like, hey, like it's slow, but it's good stuff. You just got to give it a chance. So I definitely agree with you there. And I'm very excited to see where the rest of this journey goes. I did have a few minor gripes. I think it was just, and this is like super, super small. But actually, before I get into that, I did want to touch on, when you're talking about the world and magic actually being harder, I do feel like the story itself is very easy for people to follow along for a fantasy series. Because a lot of fantasy series out there kind of just throw you in like Wheel of Time. They're like, here you go, good luck, goodbye. And then you're just like, oh, so I had to do all this research on my own. But overall, I feel like it's pretty good so far. But back to my minor gripe. The only minor gripe I had outside of, getting invested into certain characters, and the exposition not being as grounded or clear as it could be. It was just a few of the editing scenes for me. Like there was a few moments where I felt like the editing just like, I'm not sure, if we got like the final product or not, but some of I'm not, let me know if you feel this way, because I feel like there are parts where like characters are having a conversation or it's like an action sequence is taking place. And then like, it was, I don't know, there was like some really weird edits there for me at least, but it's very minuscule, but it was something that I noticed and I was like, but this person was just talking. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm like, whatever. But there's also a specific sequence where something happens and I'm like, how did they get from point A down to point B? It was like, we didn't see anything. I'm not sure if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but
yeah, I lumped that all into my context. I lumped that all together, like with a series, like with fantasy in itself, like you can be dropped in the middle of a story, but eventually we have to understand why we're here, what we're doing, what's this power that we have, why are we going here, why has no one ever been here, what's in this woods, or whatever is happening. And I really feel like I'm so hopeful. You are Disney, you will reveal yourself to us within these next episodes, because they can. There's no reason why it can't be amazing. And so if it's not, I don't know what I'll do. I mean, like, I don't know what I'll do.
Are you going to swear it off forever?
I just don't know what I'll do. And maybe it's because, and I hate to say this, but maybe it's because it doesn't come from a book or something. Because I know that George Lucas made a book, but I think he adapted the book from the movie. And so I'm not sure it's more context than the film. But I mean, as of right now, it's a new ride. It's a new world. I think it's great if you have been itching to get your hands on another fantasy series, while we're waiting for Rings of Power and House of the Dragon to come back a year or two later. I think it's just, or 5, whenever George wants to finish his book. But yes, I think that if you're a D&D player, if you like fantasy, if you like those types of adventure strategy like games, and you're a fan of that old school Princess Bride, Sword in the Stone, type of show, I think that you will like it.
I agree with you there. And I feel like we can actually definitely get into final thoughts here, which you actually kind of started. It's all right. You know what? You're ahead of the game. That's all I can ask for. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's blowing through this itinerary like it's nobody's business. But yeah, as far as for my final thoughts, I really felt like the first 3 episodes of Willow so far definitely embodied what made the original film so beloved. Like you said, it's that classic fairy tale fantasy adventure. It's back with that like modern or hints of modern sensibility altogether. And like I said before, you can definitely watch the show without seeing the movie, but watching the movie first does enhance that experience prior to actually starting the film. And of course, the movie is streaming on Disney Plus, which I was very shocked. I was very shocked for some reason. I didn't think it was going to be on there because there's a lot of things like Bridget Terabithia that is not on Disney Plus. And I'm like, why is this not on Disney Plus? I need a good cry. Luckily, I have the Blu-ray, but it's not on Disney Plus. And I was like, well, is Willow going to be here? I don't know. It's there. It's all there. But of course, the addition of more people of color and fancy properties, it's always welcome addition. But so far we just have to kind of wait and see where the rest of this journey takes us. Because from what I've seen from the trailers, a lot of the shots seems like they're from later episodes.
Okay.
But from what I've noticed, at least, because I watched the 3 episodes and I went back and watched the trailer. I'm like, oh, okay, like what can I point out? Because I'm trying this new thing where I don't watch trailers before watching like TV shows.
You going cold? Yeah, me too.
Trying to, but then the whale trailer dropped, and I was like, okay, you got me. You twisted my arm. I got to figure out what's going on here. But that was more of a teaser trailer. I don't know why they said that was a trailer. I was like, this is like a minute and you show like absolutely nothing. That's a teaser trailer, at least in my eyes. So to get back on track, I was delighted to see, Warwick Davis and Joanne Whalley reprising their roles as Willow and Sorsha. They're the OGs, as I guess it's like the Luke, Han, and Leia situation, but Mad Mardigan, he is mentioned throughout the first 3 episodes, but with everything that's happened with the character and Val Kilmer, they kind of have to work the way around it, much like they kind of did with Top Gun. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens altogether. But
that would be the number one reason to rewatch the original film, or to watch the original film, is not that it would. It will give you some backstory into where the series is. It doesn't lack that much context to where you'd be like, what did I watch this for? No, it definitely sets it up, but also you get a chance to get to know Mad Mardigan. And that's something that you'll want, because you'll understand why his presence is missed so much in the series, not just by viewers, but by characters within the story as well. And so I think you definitely need to watch the film to get a sense of that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. Again, I'm a newbie to the whole Willow series thing, but I was very surprised that Willow was getting a series. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's that like old school, like fantasy movie, right? I was like, man, like, because I believe Willow, there was 2 books that follow the journey after the movie. I watched it off this one YouTube video. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but apparently someone had made like 2 novels kind of like continuing that journey. I don't know if this is an adaptation of those books or if it's something new entirely. I'm just going to assume that it's something new altogether, but I'm not entirely sure. But did you have anything else you wanted to bring up final thoughts wise before we kind of just get into our ratings for the first 3 episodes?
I just want people to, like we are, we're just taking it in. Just take it all in and just let the story unfold. And also go into this series trying not to compare it to recent fantasy series that we've seen as of late, because I think if you try to stand it up to being the next this or the next that, it'll always kind of fall short. So just go into it knowing that this is an entirely different world. Magic looks different. Creatures look different. The world feels different. It's an entirely different situation, probably unlike what you've seen before. It does not come from a book, so it's just new. And so just take it in and let it tell its story. And then when you get to the last episode, decide if you too are a Willow fan or not.
That is a beautiful sentiment there. Yeah, because I do feel like we live in this comparative world in film Twitter. It's very fun altogether. But yeah, I do agree. This is not House of the Dragon. This is not Rings of Power. This is its own thing. This is like your classic, like we've said, like fairy tale fantasy adventure situation. So I think, like you say, you just need to take it for what it is. And, if you're enjoying the ride, it's a very easy watch. Not a lot is going on. It's, the characters have that, that kind of snarkiness to them from time to time. There's a lot of old timey jokes that they kind of throw in there as well. Like I was chuckling a little bit, but it is very modern not everyone is speaking in this old English accent and all this stuff. So it's like, you have some characters that do, some characters that don't, but it is a very, it's like a nice blend of new and old. But yeah, definitely, I think people should watch it. It's something fun, to kind of scratch that fantasy itch. Once you're done with The Dragon Prince, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, then you got Willow, and then we got His Dark Materials, which is coming up, season 3. Very, very excited. So let's get into our ratings really quick. Kit, what would you rate the first 3 episodes of the Willow sequel series?
Okay. Are we going out of 5 or out of 10?
Whatever your heart desires. So I mix it up sometimes. Like sometimes I do the letterbox scale. Sometimes I do out of 100. I do like a percentage wise. Whatever feels more comfortable to you. Whatever your rating scale is.
You grade point average. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you could.
I will say out of 5, I will give the first 3 episodes of Willow a 3.5 out of 5. I feel like that's a good place to be because it's not bad. You can get through all 3 episodes, but you don't get it in a lot. If I was hooked and synced in completely sold out, it would be higher, but I'm not quite there yet. And I think what keeps me going is not so much the story, but the love for the original film. And so I will give it a 3.5 out of 5, which is plenty of room to grow in later episodes. Yeah.
I'm actually right there with you on the 3.5 scale. I guess we could, the letterbox scale, whatever you want to call it. For the reasons you actually just mentioned, like you said, like when I watched the first episode of like House of the Dragon, like, we were sent screeners and I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, like Game of Thrones is back. Obviously, when it comes to Willow, I feel like there are moments where I'm like, oh, well, like the original, it's so hokey and so ridiculous, but it's so much fun. And like you said, I feel like I too, even though I just watched it a few weeks ago, I feel like it is it's me watching the original film and saying, oh, well, I want to see where the story goes because there's so much potential in the original film. And, I can't quit now. Like I need to see the first season through. And I feel like 3.5 for me as well is a really nice landing point, which is not bad. I know some people are like, oh, 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. It's like that's like your average. That's like a solid C+ in my book, at least. So overall, I really am enjoying it. And I'm just delighted to see these, characters returning. Obviously Warwick Davis and Joanne Whalley have a lot of love for the original film. And especially with Joanne and Val Kilmer, they actually were falling in love at the time in real life during the original shooting of the first film. So it's been pretty.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I don't believe they're together anymore, but at the time, I believe they were married for a time, according to my YouTube sources. Or me just scouring YouTube is really what it is. But yeah, apparently they used to be married.
They were married for almost 10 years.
Yeah. So from what I watched or read, that kind of started when they were shooting the original Willow film. So That's your little tidbit for the day. It makes sense now that I'm thinking about they really they were really in love. I was like, what? My gosh. But, with Willow, it's different because, you have Elora Danan, from the original film. It's not a chosen, it's a chosen one, but it's a girl instead of a boy. So it's, it kind of really knocks down a lot of those traditional, chosen one rules where it's like, oh, the chosen child, it's a male and it's been a male for God knows how long. But yeah, overall, I am enjoying the series so far, but we just have to keep watching each week, Kit, to see what's going on. I don't know if the first 3 episodes are dropping all together at once on Disney Plus, but obviously
I think I'm
assuming. Oh, they are?
I feel like they are. Usually when they give us all 3, they drop all 3. Or maybe at least the first 2. maybe.
At least the first. Yeah. You know what? You might be right. And I feel like for Willow, I feel like actually dropping the first 3 episodes might be a good idea to get people back into the series, because if it was just the first episode, I'd be like, oh, okay, like it's fine. But, we have a little bit more context with watching the first 3 episodes. So we kind of see where the story's going. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. For everyone out there listening, if the first 3 episodes are dropping, let us know. Tweet at us at Film Optix. Again, that's Optix with an X. Let us know what's up. Of course, this is going to be dropping on the day that it drops on Disney Plus, which is November 30th. So with all that said and done, I'd like to thank Kit for coming on to the show. We'd love to have you back. This was a fantastic time. Wanted to take a little bit of time so you can let our listeners know where you can where they can find you on the internet, and what projects you have coming up.
Oh, on the internet. I was going to say, you can find me by the garbage can at Food for Less. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you can find me, live tweeting a show and, tweeting out memes at ByKitStone on Twitter. That's BYKITSTONE, and on Instagram. And you can find my content on theblackcapemag.com, where I'll be posting reviews and other little tidbits I find. Yeah, always around bugging Christian about his taste in television and film.
Bliss, my taste is impeccable. It is unmatched. People need to get on my level. I've ascended. I've crossed that plane altogether.
Yeah.
No,
yeah, we'll talk about Jurassic World Dominion another time then.
It's that movie. It's such a trigger word. No, I'm kidding. it's okay.
I'm your guest. You cannot disrespect Jurassic World Dominion to your guest.
I mean, Land Before Time is right there, and I can get the same effect, the same dinosaur fixed. And it is a hey, I'm just saying it's all there. But God, there's so many Land Before Time movies. I forgot how many there were.
There are.
But with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, if you liked what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a movie lover in need. And really quick, what is out right now? Because I don't know what's on deck, since this is kind of like, we're recording into the future, again. But what is out right now for everyone to listen to on our podcast? We covered Black Adam, so you can definitely check that out on podcast platforms around the internet, as well as Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Causeway, which is now streaming on Apple TV Plus. Definitely go give it a watch, because Jennifer Lawrence is back, and I'm very, very excited. So with all that said, thank you again, Kit, for coming on to the podcast. And we will see all of you, ladies and gentlemen, next time.